Welcome back. You are listening to the Tuttle Group Real Estate Radio Hour. I'm your host, Andy Tuttle of the Tuttle Group at Fairway Mortgage. We have with us here Elliot Eisenberg, Ph.D. He is a nationally acclaimed economist and public speaker. He's been on the show a few times. The home of graphs and laughs. He's got a great website, econ70.com. It's 70 words on the economy every single day. And we're going to talk about what happened last year from beginning to end, 2016. How did it end based on predictions? And then what can we expect going forward in 2017? Elliot, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, Andy. A pleasure to be on. Always great to be with you.
Yeah, I love it. It's always great to have you. I love your insight and your humor. You've got a great combination of being very, very smart, but also very witty and fun to listen to.
Or at least funny compared to the other economists.
Yes, that's true. That's true. We have to look at the playing field there. It's like being a...
Right. The limbo bar is low. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. Being a good it's a bar, like being a funny CPA. It's kind of like that. Well,
right.
Compared to CPAs, it's an easy audience.
Thank you.
So, Elliot, talk to us a little bit about 2016. We came on the beginning of last year and talked about the predictions there. Where do you feel 2016 ended versus where you thought it was going to go at the beginning of last year?
It turned out to have been a bit of a bummer year. I wouldn't say it was awful by any stretch of the imagination, but it was pretty run-of-the-mill. The Federal Reserve, and you can get this by the feeling of the Fed, when the year started, the Fed wanted to raise rates. They said, we're going to try and raise rates 4 times, each by a quarter point, so 1 percentage point. And at the end, they got 1 rate rise in December. GDP should have been 2.1. It'll be 1.6, 1.7. So a mildly downer year in a string of relatively crummy years back to back to back already. We've had 7 or 8 years of mediocrity. This was just another low mediocre year.
It's very interesting you say that because I see those numbers too, and I was not surprised that they were only going to raise it once, even though they said 4 times. But when I at least watch the media and I see things, I hear a lot of great news about look how great the economy is doing and all of this great movement. But when I look at the numbers, I'm like, well, it wasn't horrible. You know what I mean? We didn't quite get into a recession, although there was a threat of that. But, it wasn't this banner year that people had thought about. So what do you think was the cause of the really maybe over-prediction of what was the over-optimism at the beginning of the year? Why did that not pan out?
Well, I think there's the economy is unable to grow very fast. And I think we're only now really beginning to understand that, or that now we've grasped this. We keep thinking GDP growth is going to be better. We're going to have faster growth, but the globe is not growing fast. China's slowing down. Japan hasn't done well. Europe's only now starting to come out. Commodity prices were low. Energy prices were low. So that's one thing we have. Population growth here isn't very fast, and labor productivity is not quick. Under these conditions, you can't have fast growth. It's not possible. But what we do have that's surprising is very low levels of unemployment. They're remarkably low, especially given how low GDP is. And that's because productivity is low. So you can to get more output, you need to hire more people because you can't get the people to work better. That's the problem.
What do you think about the unemployment being low, though, as well, because people are, they're not being counted in the numbers anymore. They're just falling off of that data report. What do you say to that?
That's the problem. We've lost those, arguably. If things were as good as they were at the peak back in 1999, 2000, we'd have 6 million more people working than we do. They'd be paying taxes and, doing spending and all kinds of good stuff for the economy. So this loss of workers is meaningful, but regrettably, there's nothing we can do about it. It's kind of like aging. It just happens. And in 10 or 20 years, when all the boomers come in, we'll get younger again. It'll go up again. But in the meantime, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I would say, I think the sample week was this week, 4 jobs, and again, it was a little lower than expectations on the jobless claim, so pointing to some better signs. And then again, I guess it was yesterday that Janet Yellen came out and talked. You spoke of 4 rate hikes were predicted last year. The news for the last couple of months have been 3, and then Janet Yellen came out and really focused on that in her statement. I just want to read it for the audience, too. She said yesterday, now, it's fair to say the economy is near maximum employment and inflation is moving toward our goal, although inflation has been running below our 2% objective for quite some time. We have seen it start inching back up towards 2% last year as the job market continued to improve and as the effects of a big drop in oil prices faded. And she said that with the context of increasing the Fed funds rate or increasing it a few times. She said a few times this year. What do you think will happen with the Fed funds rate?
It's hard to know, but we do know unemployment is remarkably low at 4.7. It can't get much lower. Historically, only in two different periods in the last 50 years have we had unemployment lower than this. So this is, by historical standards, low. And wages are going up. We know wage growth increased by 1 whole percentage point last year from 2 to 3 or 3 to 4, depending on how you measure. So we're really starting to run out of workers. So what depends now is how stimulative Trump is to the economy. If he gives us all tax cuts and we have more money in our pocket and we start to spend it and firms start looking for workers and wages go up, that causes inflation and the Fed starts to raise rates. So we don't want to see too much of a tax cut. We want to see Trump say that corporations invest in plant and equipment, bring money from abroad into America, build more stuff, buy more robots, hire some people, train your people better, and that will make our people work better, and that would be very, very good for the economy. If we did that, we won't have so many rate hikes. Either way, they're not going to start until mid-year at the earliest because we simply don't know what Trump's going to do. He doesn't know. Congress doesn't know. They're feeling each other out. It's early in the boxing match, if you will.
You're listening to the Tuttle Group Real Estate Hour. We are talking with PhD and nationally acclaimed economist Elliot Eisenberg about what do we think is going to happen this year. Elliot, you talk about Trump. Now, I remember on November 8th, the night of the election, when it looked like he was going to win, stock futures were down 700, 800 points. And then the next day, and really for the month afterwards, we saw the stock market rally, and we saw the bond market, obviously on the other side of that, really prices dip, yields rise, and interest rates rise over a point in 5 weeks, which, by the way, in my 15 years in the business, I've never seen. And it pointed to, and at least some of the thoughts were, because all of his talk about putting more infrastructure in place and doing some of the things that he wanted to do with the economy. Now, like you said, we're in the beginning of the boxing match here, but what are your thoughts about what Trump is going to bring either positively or negatively to the economy?
It's a work in progress, so we're sort of groping here in the dark a little bit. On the negative side, the idea of having a trade war could be very negative. It's possible it works out okay. China upward values their currency to reduce their exports to us. That could work out, but that's very slippery slope. So the trade war makes me nervous, as does any reduction in immigration or more deportations. This could send out a couple million illegals. This would not be good for the economy. So hopefully we don't get that, and hopefully we don't get just big tax cuts. If we avoid that, we'll be okay.
And finally, what do you think would be the single most important, or one of the most important factors, pieces of this puzzle that the new administration should focus on to get our economy moving or continuing to move in the right direction?
It's no question supply side stuff. We need to get more plant, more equipment, more infrastructure. And on the infrastructure side, it's important. We don't want just to pave roads. We have to do this very carefully. We need better airports, faster internet, ways to make people do better, reduce the cost of transportation, reduce the cost of moving goods, K through 12 education, training for workers who want to change careers or better themselves, who are unemployed, help them get the help they need so they can re-enter the labor force and get a higher paying job. We need to make our economy work faster and better, because we're not going to have millions of new kids coming on. That's not going to happen. We've got what we've got. We have to make it more efficient and better. You
mean you don't want to build just some fake mock cities like they did in China? You don't think that'll help?
Very funny. Thanks very much. Exactly. And when Obama had the fiscal stimulus shovel-ready, we know there's nothing shovel-ready. So let's just do it carefully and be thoughtful about it and not waste our money and get value for money, because we're not going to have you don't get this opportunity that often.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that there's a lot of talk about infrastructure, and I'm with you. I'm hopeful, cautiously hopeful, that turns out to be the right kind of infrastructure, well thought out and put to good use. Otherwise, it will not go where we want it to go. Elliot, thank you so much, as always, for your wisdom and humor, sir. I hope you have a great flight. I appreciate you taking the time right before your flight.
Hey, my pleasure, Andy. Absolutely great being on the show. I look forward to next time already.
That sounds a good one. Have a good one, man. We'll talk to you later.